You guys already know this the main one tapping in all the way from H-Town, Houston, Texas. I'm here with my boy T.A.G.
T.A.G.
T.A.G, very nice, very evil.
Yeah, that's T.A.G shit.
The only thing we're gonna do is take over, baby.
Free fall as I dive through the kaleidoscope in my mind. No rope up to climb. Gotta remind myself that I'm fine. Mama.
What it is, what it was, and what it do, T.A.G Nation. It's your boy, two-time, two-belt Scoot. Say the full name. And I'm back from hiatus with another episode of NXT.A.G. Look, I'm so excited that English is just not going to be my language today. I'm going to just speak gibberish. I don't know who can translate gibberish out there, but we'll figure it out. But hey, we're on the road to Stand and Deliver, and this is the show before the New York show that is the go-home show to Stand and Deliver. And frankly, to be honest with y'all, I'm going to speak on that for a little bit before I get into the episode. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I'm not the biggest fan because you got this New York show at Madison Square, at the arena in Madison Square Garden. So you want to treat this show like a big deal. But then you have your equivalent to WrestleMania that Saturday. So you have two major shows that week. One on free TV and one is going to be on YouTube. Because for those who didn't know, NXT's deal with Peacock is done. So anything NXT is being moved to Peacock. So Stand and Deliver. Sorry, not Peacock, YouTube. Sorry. So everything is off of Peacock. It is moved to YouTube, and Stand and Deliver will be coming on YouTube. So, nah, it's gonna be on regular YouTube, just like how AAA is on YouTube. It's free as long as you got YouTube, and as long as you pay for your internet. You don't need premium or anything to throw it back. Was it called YouTube Red back in the day? But yeah, Stand and Deliver. So I'm not the biggest fan of it due to the notion of two big shows, with one being the Madison Square Garden show and Stand and Deliver. I know it would have been a chaotic mess, but I really wish Stand and Deliver was still on the same weekend as WrestleMania. I'm just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there. I wish it was on the same weekend as WrestleMania, because then they would have got a little more time to cook with some of these storylines that is going into the Madison Square Garden show and Stand and Deliver, which we'll go ahead and get into. It ties us into tonight. So Robert Stone, Shiloh Hill was back there talking. Tatum walks up on him, was like, "Hey, any of y'all seen Blake? Because, you know, that was on some bull what Blake pulled, and she took my championship." And Shiloh was like, "Tatum, you know I got you, girl. You know we can find her." And then it leads into our first match. The Ring QCCC, as you can see, the new women's speed champ, Ren Sinclair and Kendall Gray, taking on the team of Fallon Henley and Laney Reed. It was a tag team match, and they're building up Kendall. Of course, you know they really see something in Kendall. They really see this superstar in Kendall Gray. I don't know why, and I'm saying it because it's no offense to Kendall, but it's like, considering the talent y'all have there now, what's making her, or what do y'all see in her that's propelling her over the talents y'all have now? Like, if we take our current storylines, what's putting her over Izzy? What's putting her over Tatum? What's putting her over Blake, Thea, Jada? You could even say Fallon and Laney. Who else? Kalani. Like, what's putting Lola? Like, what's putting Kendall Gray in the position that they're like, "Hey, we see more in her than we potentially see in the current women. Now, granted, I did not watch her Evolve stuff. I'm only going off of what I've been seeing on NXT. So if she's been down at Evolve, killing it, please let me know, and I'll go back and do some research. I'll go back and do the science. But besides the point, Kendall hits her arm bar, Rand hits the final wrench, and pretty much they tap out Fatal Influence. After that, Kendall pretty much gets on the mic and was like, "Hey, JC, I want that championship." And Lola comes out and was like, "Hey, I get it though, but I kind of want the championship, so you're gonna have to wait, mama." And then Robert Stone comes out and was like, "Hey, next week at the Madison Square Garden show, Lola, Kendall, the winner takes on JC at Stand and Deliver." All right, fam, y'all got it. During their match, they did show where Elio LaFleur and Eli Knight were attacked. They supposed to be in the tag team tournament, and more on their replacement when we get to that match. But yeah, the next segment, you had Soul Ruka coming out there, and she's pretty much kind of spilling the beans and shedding her feelings about how she feel about this whole Zarya situation. And the crowd seems kind of mixed. It's like they want to hear Soul out, but at the same time, they're kind of like, we don't want to really hear all this talking you doing. But then Zarya comes out, and Zarya is getting her bars off, and the crowd is pretty much on Zarya's side. And after the promo, I must say I'm on Zarya's side too. And mainly I'm on Zarya's side because Zarya kind of has points. So Soul was under the notion of Zarya was jealous. She really didn't want her to shine, and when Soul started to shine, that's when Zarya jealousy kicked in, and it was like, no. Zarya was in your corner the whole time. Zarya only started to feel a way when you had 2 titles and you was like, fuck it, I want more. I want the women's tag titles. I want the NXT women's title. And then Zarya was just kind of sitting there like, but what about me though? Like, I can't get nothing. And then it's like, okay, fine. You let me have the TNA title opportunity, but still it's like, you got a chance to be in the Rumble. You got a chance to participate in Evolution. You got a chance to participate at John Cena's final match event at Saturday Night's Main Event. So it's like, I was there. I even stuck by your side knowing that you were the woman who pushed me off the ladder to even win that championship. And I still aligned myself with you, and I was like, like it was like, so yikes. It was like, yikes. So the crowd was more on Zarya's side. And pretty much they announced that Stand and Deliver, they're gonna go at it. And I don't know for sure if Stone made it official, but Zarya and Soul is gonna happen at Stand and Deliver. Then we get to our next segment, which was Saints and Ego was back there talking, and pretty much Saints is taking on D'Angelo. Of course, they said Joe Hendry name. He pops up, and Joe Hendry was like, well, y'all need to figure out whatever, because I'm about to beat up, Tony D for what he did and everything and all of that. More on that whole situation later on. Then we get we get Kalani Jordan taking on Thea Hale, and it kind of stemmed, I want to say from last week or the week before last, I can't remember, when they was back there talking, and then it led to them having their words, and pretty much we're here. Kalani wins. Like, I know y'all can't see me, but I'm kind of having a confused face of like why this was even kind of here. Like I see why it was here, but Kalani wins. It was really more or less setting up the match that's going to happen eventually because after Kalani gets the dub, she beats up on Thea Hale some more. Miss Parker, Jada Parker comes out there, kicks Kalani square in her chest, like just boot to the chest, like just boot to the chest. Like in the course of like a solid month, Kalani got booted in the chest like twice. In the backstage area and in the ring. But their match is being set up, and I can't remember if it was going to be on the Madison Square Garden show, or Stand and Deliver. But I guess more on that. Then we get Jasper Troy. He's pretty much talking, saying that, you know, he didn't appreciate Keanu Carver interrupting Booker T's appreciation, considering what Booker has meant to pretty much wrestling, what Booker has meant to me. How dare you, you know, be that way? But don't worry, come next week when we had this match, you know, I'm pretty much beat the respect in you kind of deal. And that led to with Briggs, because Briggs the whole night has been trying to get a word in with Tony D. Robert Stone. And he kept getting like waved off. But then there was a moment where the ref, Adrian, I can't remember his last name, he comes to Robert Stone and was like, hey, I'm just giving you a heads up, big dog. Nobody wants to referee this match because Keanu Carver is a bit of a wild card. So to kind of fast forward later, Keanu Carver was back there talking to Robert Stone, pretty much saying that, you know, he gonna beat up on Jasmine Troy, but Stone is like, look, there's no referee who wants to do this. You're gonna get fined. And then Briggs come back and was like, I'll do it. I'll referee the match. And he was like, you know, Keanu Carver don't scare me. And they kind of, you know, stood face to face a little bit, and Briggs kind of walked off and like, yeah, I'll see y'all in the ring next week. So that was the tail end of Josh Briggs' story throughout the night. Next up, we do get Shiloh Hill pretty much talking to Tatum and pretty much letting Tatum know where Blake Monroe is at, and he was like, pretty much, I looked at the picture she sent, I geotagged, located it, and boom, 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 boom. And then he actually dropped a bar. He was like, I don't know why people post everything about themselves on social media today. Like, he kind of dropped a bar at the end. But more on the Tatum situation later. Because now we are entering the gauntlet match to determine who Miles Bourne is going to take on at Stand and Deliver. Shiloh Hill started off with Jackson Drake. Jackson Drake just recently lost his Evolve Championship last week. So I guess he doesn't have to worry about having ties back to Evolve. He's now strictly NXT. So the way they did their gauntlet eliminator match, it was going to be 5 men. And eliminations can happen at any time, whether it's pinfall and submission, but all 5 men do got to have a chance to get up in there. Pause. Then the 3rd man was Dion Lennox. And then the 4th man was Charlie Dempsey. And I can't remember if the 5th man came. Yes. So the 5th man, we hear a woman's voice saying, I can't take this anymore. It ended up being Candice LeRae. And she was like, maybe this will be the spark he needs. So Johnny Gargano is the 5th and final man of the Gauntlet Eliminator. And Johnny is still doing Johnny things. He's still just kind of laying there, being aloof. Like his whole just essence has been taken from him. OTM comes out, beats up on Dion Lennox, throws him back in the ring for Shiloh to eliminate Dion Lennox. Then Shiloh eliminates Jackson Drake. Then he eliminates Charlie Dempsey. When he eliminates Charlie Dempsey, that's when Birthright just beats down Shiloh Hill. When they threw him back in the ring, Johnny was just standing in the corner, Candice eventually pushes Johnny over. He lands on Shiloh. 1, 2, 3. Johnny Gargano wins, and he is the number one contender to Miles Bourne's in a North American Championship. So that will go down at Stand and Deliver. Then, oh, you know what? My bad. The match is happening because I forgot. Jada Parker did go to Robert Stone, and the match is happening. I think it's happening at the Madison Square Garden show. So Jada Kalani is supposed to be going down at Madison Square Garden. Then we get to this match. No, my bad. OTM is being interviewed, and pretty much they was asked, why they went out there and beat up on Dion, and they was like, look, we said from the jump, we here kind of energy, like, we're going to do what we need to do. Unfortunately, Dark State has been in the way, and next week we want to have a 6-man tag. And they was like, yeah, well, who y'all 6th person going to be? And they was like, well, 6th person. Who y'all 3rd person going to be? And they was like, look, we don't really have friends around here, but we do know somebody that been wanting a piece of Dark State just as much. On the TV screen, TNA champion Mike Santana. And he pretty much kind of let Dark State know that come next week, they're getting their asses beat. Loose bars, but bars. So yes, OTM, Mike Santana taking on 3 members of Dark State, which I think Cutler must be hurt. I think Cutler is hurt or something because it's only just been Dion, Osiris, and Saquon as of late. So Cutler must have got injured for real. I'm starting to wonder. I didn't do no investigating, but I'm starting to wonder this Cutler actually hurt. Then we actually move on to this match. So the Cullen is like, well, hey, who we gonna take on now since Elio and Eli are hurt? We then hear the music of Los Americanos. Rayo Americano and Bravo Americano comes to the ring, and there you go. Los Americanos versus the Cullen. And the winner of this match will be taking on Birthright to determine who will be number one contenders versus the Vanity Project at Stand and Deliver. So, a good back and forth. Eventually, both Rayo and Bravo does they both slip the metal plate in their mask and eventually start hitting headbutts to both Nico and Spears to get the dub. So Los Americanos versus Birthright next week at the New York show to determine who's going to take on Vanity Project at Stand and Deliver. Yeah. Then we get the follow-up to Tatum, which Blake is at a hotel. She's filming one of her vignettes in the tub. Then she hears a knock at the door. Of course, she has a little chain on her door. And as soon as she opens the door, Tatum has a handful of her hair and was like, hey, next week, be in that ring because we're going to address some things. And make sure you bring my title with you. So I'm pretty sure we're going to get Tatum and Blake at Stand and Deliver if we're being fair. Then the main event, Tony D, Richard Saints. It's kind of the whole thing of this title picture being in between 4 men, these two along with Ethan Page and Ricky Saints. I'm sorry, Ricky Saints. Ricky Saints and Richard Saints are the same person. All ego Ethan Page. And Ethan Page did finally tell Ricky earlier in the night that, hey, I want the NXT championship, okay? Excuse me, I'm taking a swig of water. Pretty much, I want the NXT championship. So Ricky was like, fine, all you had to do was just say something. You didn't have to be all secretive and everything about it. So all ego is out there with Ricky. And eventually the match ends in DQ. I think Tony D was about to get the dub. And then all ego starts beating up on Tony D. And then they both beating up on Tony D. Joe Hendry comes out, kind of makes the save, even though he wants to get at Tony D as well. Then there's a moment where Ricky and Ethan are kind of wrestling over the championship. And then the ending moments announced, where the ending moments cuts to Robert Stone announcing that at Stand and Deliver, we're going to have Joe Hendry defending his championship against Ethan Page, Richard Saints, and Tony D'Angelo in a fatal 4-way. And come next week at the Madison Square Garden show, contract signing. So here it is. If you've been listening along, this is their WrestleMania, and it pretty much got built tonight. Let that sink in. If Stand and Deliver is NXT's WrestleMania, pretty much the match card got billed tonight. Just think about that, people. That sounds crazy. At least WrestleMania, we have Roman and Punk, Randy and Cody, Jade Rhea, Stephanie and Liv, now Becky Lynch and AJ. But pretty much all of Stand and Deliver was pretty much announced tonight for the show to be next week. Yeah. So that was NXT.A.G. And that was NXT. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank y'all for listening. And of course, next week, we're going to have the Go Home show before Stand and Deliver. And then, of course, we're going to have Stand and Deliver, which I will make a separate show with Stand and Deliver. I won't do the whole weave and Stand and Deliver until Tuesday's episode. I will actually make a separate show for Stand and Deliver since it is their mania. So, but there you go. Whether you loved it or hated it, don't forget to rate it thumbs up, thumbs down, like, share, comment down below. If you haven't already, make sure you tag that subscribe button and also tag that notification bell so you can be notified for all the videos. Shout outs to Lip Dizzle, Jaeger Bombastic, Juggernaut, aka The Juggernaut Show, and Leo, aka Kicking It with Leo. And until next time, you beautiful people, love one another, love yourself, take care of one another, take care of yourselves. And until next time, don't forget to tag out. Peace.
Free fall as I die through the kaleidoscope in my mind. No rope up to climb. Gotta remind myself that I'm fine. Mama